Okay, I think most folks have made it in. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 3 minutes past. Thanks for joining today. Thanks for tuning into our Maximizing Connect session. In this session, we're going to be covering customizing the agent workspace to meet your needs with third-party applications and step-by-step guides. I'll add that because we're going to be covering that today too. Alex on the line here and myself, we're going to be leading today's session. And as intros, my name is Freddie Jimenez. I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS, specialized in Amazon Connect. I spend a lot of my time focused on the agent experience. Been here at AWS for 3 years and in the contact center space for about 7. I'm super excited to be here today to answer any questions and dive deep into our agent empowerment capabilities. Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Freddie. My name is Alex Schremeyer. I am a service-line SA focused on agent experience, and we'll be walking through at the back half of this workshop here some enhancements and improvements to no-code UI builder for step-by-step guides. Been here with the Amazon Connect team for a little over 3 years, and happy to dive in with Freddie and everyone to build, see how you can improve the overall experience inside Amazon Connect.
Great, thanks, Alex. So just to cover the agenda for today, first we're going to be doing an introduction to our agent empowerment capabilities and an overview of our features, and just level set on what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be splitting today's workshop into 2 parts. So first is going to be third-party applications, and then we're going to dive into the no-code UI builder for step-by-step guides. That should take up most of our time, and then at the very end, we'll leave some time for open mic Q&A to answer any questions that may come up during the session. All right. So just to get started, I know a lot of people on the line today have been in the contact center space for a long time, but we also call into the contact center ourselves, and oftentimes we may find ourselves getting to an agent that asks us to put us on hold or to hold a moment while they look up some information. And we've even seen it in action. Agents face a staggering number of applications they have to navigate through. In fact, Gartner did a study that stated that contact center agents on average have 8 different applications to manage and handle on their throughout their day-to-day task. Whether that's managing multiple channels like voice and chat, looking up CRM information, or reservation details for a customer. And oftentimes, all these different applications that they're using are in different browsers. And it may not sound like a big deal, but it dramatically reduces the efficiency of agents. And when you see this game that agents are performing with all their agent applications, we've observed that it puts an incredible amount of cognitive load, and it limits their capability for learning and ultimately solving the customer's problem. At Amazon, we have one of the largest contact centers in the world with over 70,000 agents. And what we've noticed is that this actually causes agents to struggle to get up to speed and even experienced agents to deliver a consistent experience, right? Which is not a high-performing contact center. And on top of all of this, they're trying to empathize and understand the customer's unique circumstances while trying to multitask. And as a result, simple customer requests that come into your contact center become a lot more complex and require the same level of effort, which makes them more time consuming, more error prone, and frustrating for both your agents and your customers. Our vision to address all of these challenges is our agent empowerment and productivity solution, the agent workspace, which you see on the screen. This unified agent workspace is easy and less stressful for agents to learn, and it gives experienced agents all the tools they need to continuously improve their customer experience. With these out-of-the-box integrations, agents can accept a call, accept a chat, accept a task, and have all the right information and recommend the next action at their fingertips to provide stellar customer experiences. This unified experience is a good place for agents to find customer information. They can find offers, actions, and answers. And there's quite a few capabilities we see across the screen here, but today we're going to be focused on 2 of them. One's going to be third-party applications, which we'll cover first, and then secondly, step-by-step guides. Third-party applications enhances this agent workspace experience by allowing you to integrate your external applications right into the agent's workspace. This provides agents with the tools they need inside this unified view. It reduces average handle time and the need for intense application switching. And with 3P apps, you can bring in multiple applications to create that single pane of glass. And it will even allow you to dynamically query and surface data into the application from the contact the agent is handling, like your customer name or even phone number. Some examples include customer portals, mission critical applications to CRMs, appointment schedulers, voicemail portal, or even agent dashboards to display their stats. And partners can also leverage this to integration to easily deploy their offerings when customers adopt the agent workspace. You can create any web application or integrate any web application that can be iframed. So you'll want to make sure whatever application your agents are using has the proper cross-origin access policies in place for it to be live inside the agent workspace. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive into the workshop. So with that, let's dive into what we're going to be building today. We're actually going to be building a web application to embed right into your own instance of Amazon Connect. And I know that sounds intense, but no, we're not going to be coding a whole web app. Thankfully, we've done most of the heavy lifting for you, and we're going to be deploying it using a CloudFormation template. That will deploy the code in your AWS account and provide you a URL that you can use inside Amazon Connect for the part of the workshop. We'll also walk through configuring users to access this inside your Amazon Connect instance. And lastly, we'll open it up in the agent workspace so you can see it live. We'll do some testing, and you'll actually also be able to see events that pass through from the agent workspace that are surfaced into the third-party application. I'm not going to go too deep into the specifics of CloudFormation and what it can do, but I do want to at least provide a level 100 knowledge so that we can understand what's happening behind the scenes. AWS CloudFormation is an infrastructure as code service, and it allows you to easily model and provision AWS resources in a more automated and secure manner. So we built a template for you, and all you're going to have to do is deploy it using AWS CloudFormation in your AWS account. What this template is going to deploy in your account is an S3 bucket that will host the static website content. It's also going to deploy a Lambda function that will be copying the website content that we've created over to your S3 bucket, and then a CloudFormation distribution or a CloudFront distribution that will serve your website URL over the internet. And if you don't have access to CloudFormation in your AWS account, that's okay. We just ask that you follow along with us today. We'll be providing a link to the written workshop so that you can, at a later time, work on embedding a different application or even one that you may be building today. And we'll also be recording the session. So if you want to get access to this recording, you can reach out to your AWS account manager. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave this on the screen up here for a little bit. I'm going to ask that everyone log in to your AWS console if you haven't already. Get situated, and then there's the URL here that I think we can put in the chat. Or if not, Alex, if you mind copying that in there for me in the chat. I don't really have access to it.
Done.
And then we'll give everyone 2 minutes just to make sure they can log in and open up the workshop, and then we'll go ahead and dive in and get started. I'm going to do the same on my end. And when you open up the workshop, you're going to see it's actually covering all our agent empowerment suites. And on the left-hand side, you'll see different versions, or not different versions, but different segments of our capabilities. And so you're going to want to go ahead and click third-party applications, which is the one we're going to be covering today. And that's just for your reference. I am going to be walking us through the step-by-step today. So you really don't need to open it, but just ask that you have it alongside with you just in case you lose track. We're going to be covering all those steps today in order. And if you're having trouble accessing your AWS account, or if you need a few more minutes, let us know. If you're having trouble accessing the workshop, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we'll get started here in just 1 minute. I'm going to do my best to juggle two different screens here with the workshop as well. So bear with me. Okay, I don't see anyone having trouble. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is inside the workshop, there is a CloudFormation template we're gonna actually download. So if you go to third-party applications and then build your app, it talks a little bit more about what's going to be deploying inside your AWS account using this CloudFormation template. And right underneath there, it'll say deploying resources using AWS CloudFormation. Oh, I think it says one person who can't hear you. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. If there's one person who can't hear me, I suggest maybe trying to rejoin or looking at your mic settings. Sounds like most can hear already. Hey, Russell, it sounds like you're the one asking or speaking on behalf of Joy. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I'm just going to go ahead and move along unless someone else mentions that they can't hear me. Anyway, so on this page where it says build your app, there's going to be a button in orange that says download this AWS CloudFormation template. You may have to right click and hit save link as, depending on what browser you're using. It might try to open up in a different window. So if you hit save link as, it will download the template into your downloads folder or wherever you define that. And then we're going to go ahead and open up CloudFormation. So if you're on the home page of the AWS console, you can either search up top AWS CloudFormation, and you'll see CloudFormation comes up under a list of services. You can click that. And you'll probably get a screen similar to what you see in the workshop if you've never used CloudFormation before. It'll ask you if you want to create a CloudFormation stack and say create stack. If you see the create stack button, that is what you're going to want to click. I'm going to go ahead and hit create stack. And if it's probably going to also ask you if you want to use new resources or existing. If you have that question, you're going to want to hit use new resources. All right. Once you click create stack, your view might look a little similar to mine. You're going to have a few different options here. You're going to want to go underneath where it says specify template. Under specify template, there should be an option to upload a template file. And because we do have our template file already downloaded, we're going to select that option. Once you've selected upload a template file, we're going to go ahead and select choose file. And we're going to locate wherever you saved that file and open it up. All right. Once you've uploaded that file onto CloudFormation, you're going to go ahead and select next. And then you're going to be brought to a screen that is asking you to specify the stack details. So the only thing you have to specify here is going to be the name of your stack. It can be something super unique, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to call it my first third-party app. You can use the same or something else and just hit next. Once you put your name in and hit next, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can leave all of these as default selections and hit next again. And then one last time, scroll to the bottom and you'll see an acknowledgement that you'll have to select the checkbox to acknowledge that CloudFormation is going to be creating all these resources on your behalf. You'll want to select that button and then hit submit. This is going to take a few minutes while it creates your resources and then it provisions your distribution for your URL. So I'm going to let that sit there really quick and hopefully yours won't take as long. Once mine is complete, I'll go ahead and show you what we should be doing and where we should get that information from. In the meantime, while we're waiting here, we're going to also want to pull up the AWS console administrative side for Amazon Connect, and then also pull up our URL for Amazon Connect instance in which we're going to be setting up the third-party application into. So while we're doing that, I'm just going to open up another window that has my console. I'm also going to pull up my Amazon Connect. So if you want to search up top, Amazon Connect. Right, and once you get to here, you should be okay. I see a question in the chat that says, does it make a difference if the Connect instance has SAML login or local login? It's not going to make a difference for this workshop. And we'll talk a little bit at the end with best practices in terms of what makes more sense when you're deploying your third-party apps. For this case, there's no login associated with the third-party app. Just as long as you can get into your Amazon Connect instance and get to these screens to set it up, you should be okay. And then I'm also going to open up my Amazon Connect instance and log into that. And then I'm going to go back and check the status of my deployment. You'll start to see a whole bunch of events come through in CloudFormation. It's just notifying you what's actually deploying and what's happening behind the scenes. We're going to have to wait until this create in progress status turns into create complete. That will indicate to us that we has successfully deployed and that we have the outputs required, which is going to be our URL and all the resources as part of that deployment.
Hey, Freddie, while we're waiting for CloudFormation, do you maybe want to take some time to explain the types of apps that can be embedded as 3P applications and why we're specifically creating our own application with CloudFormation and some of the expectations we're getting out of it?
Yeah. So for the type of applications that you can deploy are going to be applications that are either maybe partner built and that you have approval to embed or your own homegrown web applications that can be iframed. So I wouldn't think about like any website that you're using today to be able to be iframed. You're gonna have to make sure that's something that can be uh, set up to be listed into the agent workspace. So what we're doing here today is essentially going through that process with the CloudFormation template and saying, hey, let's deploy this application. What this application is doing is kind of giving you ownership of it now within SS3, so you can make changes to it if you want. And it has the proper policies to allow to be iframed into the agent workspace. Other examples include maybe some homegrown application CRMs that are web-based. Maybe you have, like, for example, your Amazon Connect instance. You can almost create like an inception inside the agent workspace so that agents can access through real-time stats. And then There, of course, are other examples where maybe partners have deployed offerings and we'll give you the permissions to be able to integrate that into the agent workspace as well. And it looks like mine just finished. So if you were right behind me, you may be a few minutes more or less. So we'll kind of just give it one more minute.
And while we're giving it
Finish
some
working.
time, I think the other thing that I'll add to what Freddie just talked about there is when we think about how to bring apps into the agent workspace, you can take an existing web application, as long as it can be iframed, like Freddie said, you can take it, you can bring it in today, and the step that we're going to do next is the point where you would configure that. What we're doing here is doing that integration with the Amazon Workspace SDK, which provides the support for events. So that's getting data out of Amazon Connect and passing it through to your applications. So there's the relatively zero effort path of taking an existing app and just plugging it in. And then there's the more integrated path where you can actually have it react and respond to things that are happening within Amazon Connect. And we'll dive more into that. So as you're thinking through, this is of course a sample application, but thinking through some of your apps or some of your use cases, try and consider, does it need to connect or respond to events in Connect? If so, you'll want to integrate with the SDK, and this is a very good sample package to show you how those events work. If not, then maybe just exposing, the ability for it to be iframed and handling auth if it's through SSO or through some other means. It might be a really quick and efficient way to get that functionality into the out-of-the-box workspace.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing there, you technically still have to initialize the SDK into your application, and there's documentation around it. What you can think about is what type of events you want to pass back and forth. So we can go over the documentation and the best practices as well. But events maybe such as like your contact name, your contact ID, I mean, the customer name, your agent status, etc., right? And those are all things that you'll have to configure inside your application. And we have some documentation that covers kind of more specifics around that as well. All right, I think we should be okay now. We have deployed our first app. Um, Easiest app I've ever deployed in my life. And there's multiple tabs underneath your stack. You'll see stack info, events, resources. We're actually going to go to outputs. You should see two things. If your creation is not complete, you won't see anything. If once it's done, these will populate here. These are going to be your outputs of your CloudFormation template. And what this is going to show you what S3 bucket was created on your behalf for you, where all the application content is sitting. And then secondly, it's going to be the website URL. You're going to want to take this URL and copy it and just have it somewhere because we're going to be using it later once we configure this third-party application into Amazon Connect. If you take this URL and paste it into your browser, for example, I have multiple meeting things on top of my screen, so I can't see, but there you go. You should come up to a screen like this. You'll see that it has not been able to initialize the workspace because it's not sitting inside the agent workspace. And it doesn't have any permissions. This is actually looking to see if the event's set, so it can't find anything, and then you won't be able to see any agent information or state or any context that's listed here. So this is the web application that exists today solely, and that you can access from this URL. And what we're going to be doing here is taking this URL and iframing it into the agent workspace. All right. With that, we're actually going to go back to the AWS console. And if you're on your CloudFormation page, great. What we're going to do is search Amazon Connect up top if you haven't already pulled it up. And on this screen where you see the list of your instances, you'll see on the left-hand side it says instances, and right below it, it has third-party applications. You're going to want to select third-party applications. Once you select third-party applications, you'll be brought to a screen very similar to this. Um, you'll probably notice that there is no existing applications today. If you do have any, they'll be listed below. But what we're going to want to do is add an application. So once you hit add application, you'll get brought to this form that has different options here. So I'll just give everyone 1 minute to kind of catch up there. All right. The first thing we're going to want to do is add a display name for your application. This is going to be the friendly name on your agent workspace that's displayed to your agents for them to select. So you're going to want to put something that's a little relevant so that the agents know what kind of app it is. For example, if it's a notes app, or for example, if it's a voicemail app, you're going to want to name it voicemail or notes, right? For this example, it's just a testing app. So I'm just, again, going to call it my first third-party app. And next, you're going to have to give it a namespace. You can give it the same name as well. What this is doing is allowing you to define behind the scenes the name of your app. You can't change this later, so just make sure it's something that's relevant for you in terms, or for developers in the room. For example, like my first third-party app, I can use this. If that's not something you're going to want to use, you can use like app one, and this is something that you can use with when you're making developments and also accessing events, etc. You can add a description, so I'm going to add description, my first third-party app. And once you're done there, you're going to use that URL that you just copied over. What you're going to want to note here is that you actually have to include HTTPS. So you'll type that in first because it didn't output that in the CloudFormation for you. And then type in the URL you were just provided. All right. If you have any type of login flows in your application, you're going to want to make sure that you also include those within the approved origins so that they can be allowed listed as well as part of access to this application. So if you have some sort of login flow that includes like SSO, you'll want to make sure you add those domains here as well, if it's different than the one that you have to access the web application itself. For this case, it's going to be a static web page, so we don't have anything else to include here. So we're going to go ahead and leave that blank. And then you're going to go ahead and scroll down. And the next option is going to be permissions. When you onboard applications onto your Amazon Connect instance, you have to explicitly give these applications permissions to your Amazon Connect data. So when we talk about passing events back and forth from the agent workspace to your application, such as customer name or phone number, contact ID, agent name, agent status, those are all going to be permissions you have to allow your application to access. So when you create your applications, they will default to have all the permissions. However, you can edit these permissions here to restrict access to certain events for certain applications. We're going to leave this as is, but if you, for example, remove one of these later down the road, you can do some of your own testing, and you use the same URL of the CloudFront or CloudFormation template we just created, you'll notice that it actually triggers you and lets you know that, hey, you're missing some of the permissions, and it will highlight them right here so that you can kind of see, what this is testing for and making sure that you have the right permissions to access the right data. Of course, these are all things you can listen to as well as part of your own application. but it'll be use case by use case basis. And then lastly, we're going to scroll down to the very bottom. It says instance association. This is where you're going to be able to provide access to your instance to populate these applications into your security profiles to provide access to your agents. So you'll have to select your instance, or you can select all instances within this region. And then once you select that, you should be able to get access to that application inside your Amazon Connect console. So I went ahead and selected all instances, and then I'm going to select Add Application. And I'm going to give everyone just one more minute to catch up here. And one more thing to note too, while we're waiting really quick, you may have noticed that I use HTTPS or the URL. It is required to use HTTPS. So if you have a web application that is not using the secure protocol, that's something you're going to want to also take a look at. The only thing that's allowed as part of this list here as your access URL is localhost. So if you're looking to do some testing on your own and while you're doing some development, you can actually add your localhost domain here and then pull that up into the agent workspace. All right. Once you've added your third-party app, you'll see a green banner up top. It says my first third-party app was successfully added. And now you can give it access to particular agents inside the Amazon Connect admin site under security profiles. So great job. We're halfway there. I'm going to go ahead and now from here move over to my Amazon Connect console, which should look something like this. I'll give everyone another minute to log in. All right, and once you've reached your Amazon Connect homepage, we're going to go over to the left-hand side on the navigation pane and select Users. And under Users, we're going to go under Security Profiles. Once you reach this page, you're going to open up the security profile that you're going to want to manage access to your application. So if, for example, you're going to be adding this type of access to your agents, or maybe it's an application such as real-time dashboards that you want to give access to maybe quality, or other types of supervisors, you can kind of find those security profiles accordingly within this list. I am going to be opening up the admin security profile because that is the account I'm logged in under. Once you open up the security profile, you're going to go down to the bottom where it says Agent Applications. The first thing you're going to want to open up or provide access to is going to be Agent Apps. So you'll want to select all for that. And then you'll see underneath, at the bottom of this list under Agent Applications, your new app should be populated. So I will select all to provide access to my first third-party app, to whoever has a security profile. So once you start adding different applications, they're actually going to populate under this list. You'll see I have my first third-party app and my test app, and I can provide access through here. There may be instances where you want to provide access to some users and to not different users, so you can do that by providing a different security profile. You'll start to see all the same apps and all the same security profile, or all the security profiles you have in your instance, but you'll manage access to who can reach those applications through your security profile here. Right? Once you finish there, you're going to select Save.
Hey, Freddie, someone's saying that they don't have the agent apps permission in their instance. I'm just seeing two people with that comment there.
They're not seeing the agent apps.
Yeah,
Is there?
inside of agent applications. So if you want to go back to that security profile.
Yeah.
So some folks are saying that they aren't seeing agent apps up there in an existing profile.
Um,
But we do see someone say that they
if
had
they
to
have a
have
new.
a profile. So if they created a new security profile, then that showed up. So if a couple people can maybe take a look and see if that helps.
Yeah, if you go back to the security profile page, maybe we can take a look at this. Try adding a new security profile. When you do that and scroll down to agent applications, do you see agent apps? Okay, if you can see my first third-party app, just select that.
Yeah.
If you're missing agent apps,
Is agent apps a name of an app in your account, Freddie?
it might be.
Might be.
I Yeah, I thought it was for the third-party apps, but maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong now.
There you go.
I'm getting me confused.
I'm saying for a sanity check, I don't see it in my environment as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think
Then
that
ignore what I said, and we'll just focus on my third-party app.
there we go. All right.
All right, once you updated that, you should be good to go. And we're going to go ahead and open up the agent workspace, which should be in the top right-hand corner of your screen on the dashboard. Yes, it was indeed. All right, once you open up the agent workspace, it should pop up in a new window as such. And I'll give everyone just one more minute to get there. Once you open that up, now, if you've never been in the agent workspace before, I'll just do a quick little walkthrough. So the left-hand side is going to be the CCP, which is where your agents are going to be handling their soft phone uh, conversations, calls come in, chats come in. They'll be able to handle or manage their different channels, so chat, voice, and then also make changes to their status. Across the top, we're going to have different tabs here. One's going to be customer profiles, cases, and as you start to open up third-party applications or even step-by-step guides, which we'll talk about next, you'll start to see different tabs open up across the top for your agents to be able to toggle back and forth to get the right information and handle your customer requests. On the right-hand side, you'll see Amazon Q. We did a session on this back in December, so we're not going to dive into that before, but this is our real-time knowledge-based agent assist that is also part of the agent workspace. And then you will see a new grid come up right here, kind of in the top right-hand corner. I guess if I close the Q page, you'll see it on top right-hand corner. Once you select that, you should see your My First third-party app populate into the agent workspace if you're logged in the right security profile that's assigned to your user. And once you select that application, it should open up and display the application across the screen. Some things you're going to notice is that, hey, there's a success across the board on the top, and that's because you're logged in. So the first part of this, or first row on this application is actually showing what's the agent logged into the agent workspace, what's their name, what's their ARN, what's their agent routing profile, and then what's their current concurrency limits as set within or for that user. Then on the second row, you're going to get information about the contact. And right now, I don't have a contact that's routed to my agent workspace. But for purposes of this demo, I'm actually going to show you one really quick. Um, if you have a contact flow set up with a phone number or a chat, feel free to test it out in your own environment. I'm going to go ahead and test a chat really quick. I'm going to go back to my Amazon Connect console, select test chat, and then run through a very simple contact flow that's just going to direct straight to queue. Oh, I'm on the wrong.
And while Freddie's pulling this up, there was a comment about not seeing that grid or that waffle icon. It can take a minute or so after you update the security profile for it to show up in your agent workspace. So you may need to hard refresh that window through your browser, like a Control R or Command R to refresh that. If you've set the security profile, refreshed the workspace, and it's still not showing up, make sure that you're logged in with the right user that's associated with the security profile that you updated, like Freddie had mentioned. Hopefully that resolves it for anyone that is not able to see that application grid icon.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So you'll notice that when the chat landed on the agent workspace, all my tabs are refreshed. Um, and what the agent workspace is doing whenever you get a new contact as an agent is actually giving you a fresh set of tabs to work from. And so what it did here was try to search the fake name I gave this chat person, and obviously there was an error. But typically in a normal scenario, you'll have information about your your customer that you can maybe search through customer profiles, and then you'll see the ability to open up that same app into context of this contact. And now you'll see I have my agent information as well as my contact information showing it's a chat, what queue it routed through, how long it's been in this specific contact state, and then the initial contact ID if it's been transferred. You'll also see below there's an option for contact attributes, and these are just sample contact attributes that I assigned to this chat that include my name and then a sample custom attribute as well. All right. If you're having any trouble with getting it pulled up, I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper into the Q&A, and hopefully we can solve that issue as well. But really quick, I'm going to go back to our slides here and just cover a few best practices before we kind of go into step-by-step guides. All right. Oh, I think there was one more thing I'll cover really quick. We missed how to get the information on the bottom row. So what I just did here was route a chat or a contact, right? It can be a voice chat or a task into my agent workspace. So I simply already had a contact flow set up. So if you already have one set up, you can use it. You can call into your contact center and get a contact landed into your agent workspace. Once you do that, you'll start to see the information below. So if I, for example, end this contact and route one more, I'm using the test chat feature just to be able to test the chat and route it into my agent workspace. You'll see a chat opened. And once the chat lands into the agent workspace, I'm opening up my application, which therefore shows the information of that contact onto the screen. All right, and when I end that contact, it's actually going to bring me back to the beginning. That shows me the type of agent that's logged in and then no contact information. You can see if you change your agent status, it'll actually change on the screen in real time. So what this application is doing is listening to the type of events that happen into the agent workspace to then therefore act on and then display onto the screen. The session is being recorded, so if you're having a little bit of trouble following along, we are sharing the workshop URL and also the details as part of the workshop that you can use later on. And if you want to get access to the recording, you'll have to go through your AWS account manager to get it. Just beware. All right, really quick, just so I can hand it over to Alex and make sure we have enough time for the rest of the session. Just some best practices when thinking about third-party apps. So some of the things you're going to do is just ensuring that you're using SSO just to create that seamless experience for agents. In this example, we didn't have any login flows, but oftentimes when you're using a web application, especially your agents, they have to log in to be able to access customer information. This prevents one less step for your agents when they're logging into the agent workspace and then also opening up your applications, especially if they're going to be opening up an application while on a call with the customer, right? We want to reduce that handle time. We also recommend that your applications have more of a strict content security policy header in place, just to allow only your Connect instances to iframe your application. And then lastly, our SDK does include a Connect theme package as part of it. So it's a part of the build that we use internally to build some of our components as well that you see on the screen in Connect. So we recommend you using it. This is what we call Cloudscape, and it actually helps you provide your third-party applications with more of a look and feel to match a third-party or to match the agent workspace. So I know typically your third-party applications might have a little bit of your own branding, which is totally acceptable and great. But using some of the similar theming may help create a cleaner UI for your agents and make it look a little less disjointed. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to let us know. We can share the content. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Alex.
Great. Thanks, Freddie. There's a couple of questions I haven't quite gotten to, so I'll let you address those
We'll do
in the
that.
chat as I dive in. I got most of them, but couldn't get them all. All right, so now we're going to move into kind of the back half of our session here today. Let me pull some things up on the screen. Freddie walked us through some of the new things with 3P applications. And one thing to call out for anyone that didn't maybe catch it at the beginning is that 3P applications or third-party apps is something that's currently in preview. So although we've continued to add functionality to it, we are looking at a general availability or a GA release later this year. So although there's some really exciting things that have been done so far with it, if there's anything that's missing, if there's anything that would really be important to you and your organization and the types of applications and experiences you're trying to create, funnel that back through us. I think the Q&A here might be a way to do that, but ideally we'd like to have a deeper conversation. So funnel that through your account team or your Connect Solutions architect so we can go ahead and take that feedback and help drive towards our general available launch. What I want to talk about next is other ways that we can enhance the overall agent experience within the Amazon Connect Agent Workspace. And to do that, we're going to talk about some advancements we've made within step-by-step guides. So let me go ahead and share my screen. If I can find my screen. There we go. Quick AV check. Just want to make sure that people are able to see the step-by-step guide slide.
I can see it.
Amazing. And I'll also go ahead and turn my video on here as well for a little bit. So step-by-step guides, if anyone has joined these sessions over the past couple of months, and you might remember that we did a session on step-by-step guides back in August of 2023. And at the time, we showed how you can use JSON to go ahead and build out the guides. These guides allow you to create standardized workflows, allow you to pull and push data, so get data out from CRM, from first-party applications like customer profiles or cases, and also push data back to those systems to complete activity in a single agent experience and not have to juggle those different apps and those different views. You can pre-populate the data, interact with it, and really make these dynamic experiences. But when launched, it did require having some know-how of JSON or other scripting utilities to build those experiences. What we're going to talk about today is some changes that we've made within guides to provide some more flexible experiences, kind of like what you see on the screen here, with some more creative layouts and allow you more freedom to build the experiences that you're looking for, but also be able to do so with a no-code UI builder. So just like Amazon Connect flows today, utilizes drag and drop utilities and the ability to bring blocks in and interact with those blocks, trying to make it just as easy to build these agent guides or these agent experiences that we're talking about. So there's a standard set, a standard library of different elements and components that we'll be working with here today that allow you to build these experiences that you can then present to your agents. So the goal here is to streamline, really make it easier to build the interface, the workflows that you need to for your agents, and spend less time on that upfront effort and more time on building those appropriate experiences. There's other things as we look towards the future here on extending some of this functionality into areas like self-service and using the exact same tool set that we're using here inside of the no-code UI builder to go ahead and power that. What are we building today? So we're going to go through the exact same overall workshop. It's going to be a different module, but if you already have that workshop up, that's great. We're going to go up to the step-by-step guide section that has been updated instead of going to the 3P app section. We're going to deploy what I'm going to call connected guides. This is going to be a series of different guides to let everyone understand how different pieces interact together and go through an entire workflow at the end of this workshop. We'll pull and push data. So there'll be data that will set as contact attributes, and it'll be an analog for maybe a Lambda lookup or a lookup to another system somewhere. We'll talk about how to design and adjust certain things in the area. And then at the end, we'll talk about how this plays in with 3P apps and some of the things that we're looking for in the future to go ahead and make these even more integrated so you can have the best of both worlds. You can have your existing applications that you've already built, you'll continue to build and utilize, brought into this experience, and then those differentiated workflows where you actually go ahead and build directly in Amazon Connect and see how those two things play hand in hand. I'm going to click next and you'll see a little animation here, which is an example of what we're going to build today. So we're going to start with the main view. We're then going to go through the process of filling out a form and setting a radio button. And behind the scenes, this is going to set an attribute. We're going to display those attributes from a confirmation perspective so the agent can see and confirm. And then we're going to do a disposition. Think of wrap-up codes, think of ways that agents need to respond to activity at the end, and then a confirmation. So we'll tie all of that together, that 30 or so second video there, we'll go ahead and bring into your own environment and allow you to get some hands-on and build today. Like I said, we're doing this entirely inside the exact same workshop. So it's the same workshop, just navigate to the section that says step-by-step guides instead of the section that says third-party applications. And then we're going to get started. I am going to change my screen share source here real quick. And we will get right into some of the build. All right, another AV check here. Freddie, if you don't mind, you can see a Amazon Connect instance.
I gotcha. Yep.
Fantastic. So in this part of the workshop, we're actually doing things entirely inside of the Amazon Connect admin UI. So you no longer need to do anything in the AWS console or use anything with your Amazon, your AWS credits. It's all going to be inside of Amazon Connect. And to get started, there's going to be a couple of different things that we just need to check from a permissions perspective. So just like we did for third-party applications, you'll navigate to users and you'll navigate to security profiles. And we need to check a couple of things. Now I'm going to do my admin user because that's who I'm logged in as. And we need to check a couple of things. Inside of channels and flows, we want to make sure that we have flows permissions. All is preferred, but really need the ability to at least create, edit, and view. And then we're also going to need access to the communication widget. We're going to need this because we're going to do test chat using the test chat utility, and that's inside of the communication widget. Everything we're doing here could be done via voice as well. Chat's just a little bit easier to demo in this type of an environment. And then views. In order to go ahead and view and access the different view components, we'll need to make sure that we have access to that. So make sure that you have all the same checkboxes that I see here. You could also select all and save. There's one more app that you need to go ahead and enable, or section. That's within agent applications. You'll want to make sure that you have custom views configured. It's just an access. You could select all. There was one person that I saw in chat earlier who said, can I hide Amazon Q and Connect or not see it? That's also in the same section. I figured I would just call that out because we're here. If you deselect view, then that makes it so it's not visible inside your environment. That's all we really need to do to set up our configuration. I'm not going to save because I already have things set, but you might want to go ahead and do so if anything changed for you. And we're now going to go through the process of actually building our guides. We do that by going to flows, which is in the routing component, and going to views. And we'll see that we have a couple of different AWS managed views here, and then you'll see I have a list of customer managed views. Our AWS managed views are going to be things like cards, confirmation, detail, form, and list. I'm going to click on cards just so we can see what this looks like, but you'll also see screenshots and examples of all of these inside the workshop if you navigate through those tabs to kind of get an idea of what they are. The AWS managed views that are here are really helpful just to understand kind of how the guts work. How do these things be formatted? How do they interact? And let you just kind of start to explore. The nice thing about this is that you're able to actually edit data directly inside this environment. So test to show this is live, you'll see it's updating in real time. So to give you an idea of how does a label appear? How does a value appear in this type of a setting? The other aspect that you get outside of these AWS managed views is the ability to access raw data. So you can see the actual, data, how is this formatted, and the schema if you do want to go ahead and build maybe some more of the JSON type views or understand how attributes or data is pulled into the environment, if it's a dynamic value, or when you set or submit data, how do you read that inside of contact flows, lambdas, etc., to go into other systems? We're not going to spend really any of our time inside of these AWS managed views today because we really want to show how we can build new views using the no-code UI builder. So to do that, we're actually going to go through the process of creating a new view. And then from here, we're going to have our view canvas. Within this canvas, we're going to have a library, which you can expand or contract the different elements here. You can drag things out, you can delete them. We also have templates. So to get things started, we're actually going to start at the very end of our conversation. We're going to start at the very back end of the workflow that I showed you just a little bit earlier. I'm going to start with the disposition view. So disposition is a common thing in the contact center. It allows you to input data. What was the type of call? Did it route to the right queue? Other types of things that you want an agent to manually collect at the end of a conversation. There's things like contact lens within Amazon Connect that can allow you to automate some of this and collect things like the issue, the action, or the outcome of the conversation. But you still might want to have that manual agent intervention to say, this is what happened on the contact. And a lot of times that's through a post-contact disposition. When we select and apply this from a template, we'll see a couple of different elements show up on the screen here. And we can click them to see what they're all called. We can see an attribute bar, we can see a header, a section, and then within these elements, we have elements of their own, like a toggle, or a dropdown, or a description that's in here. We're going to start by modifying this particular template, and then we'll start building something from scratch here in just a bit. To start, we do want to go ahead and give this a name that's needed to be able to save and publish and do all the things that will allow us to use this further. And if you're following along in the workshop, you'll see that a lot of the elements that I'll be copy and pasting can be directly copied from the workshop. There's two squares overlapping that allow you to easily copy the content so that way you don't have to worry about typing everything out. We're going to do a couple of things. And to start, we're going to start up here in the attribute bar. In the attribute bar, if you maximize or expand attributes, you'll see that we have 4 different attributes that can be configured. We're going to configure all of these, and we're going to start with attributes 1, where we're going to update the label. And we're going to say that the value is going to be dynamic. What this means is we're given a static label. The label is going to be, basically the subheading for this little topic here. And the value in this case is going to be passed in from somewhere else. We're going to use contact attributes to display this, but you could be bringing data in from somewhere else. View attribute, something from a Lambda function, access to your backend system, customer profiles, all of those could be eligible for dynamic inputs. We're going to go through the workshop and configure some of these other elements as well, adding things like the type of ice cream flavor, making this dynamic. And then going through the process there. One thing I do want to call out with this is we have the concept of values. We're also going to have the concept of name later on. And so the way that we name things is going to be important for how we get data out. Think of like a form, or in this case, a dropdown. The name that we're selecting is going to be important for us to reference the values appropriately and make sure that we're aligning them to the right values that we care about. We're going to select disposition here after we've updated our 2 attributes. And we're going to go ahead and change the description here to be dynamic. We're going to select our first section. So I mentioned there's different sections in here. We're going to select this first section, and we're going to modify the heading of it. We can do that by updating the text right here. How do you feel about this customer's ice cream flavor? If you haven't noticed yet, there's a little theme around this workshop. It's all around a ice cream picker, where we collect and get input from a customer on their favorite flavor and their favorite type of ice cream. And then here in the disposition, we have the agent providing their opinion. How do they feel about it? I figured it's cold and dreary here in Indianapolis. No better thing than to think about ice cream as we work through a workshop. We're going to continue through this particular section, selecting our drop-down component. And we'll see as we select all of our different elements, the configuration settings on the side are going to change. So we can do things here like set the label to flavor preference. And this is where the name comes in. So where the label is what is visibly displayed, the name, when we actually set an item, is going to be what you're going to reference against. We're going to expand options, and we're going to set 3 different options here. So I'm just going to expand all of them at once. We're going to make the label and the value exactly the same for these 3 options. And as we go through this, note that I'm putting static values here. I'm saying specifically what I want this to be. But I could be making each of these options dynamic. Or I could be making an entire subsection dynamic. Or I could be making an entire section dynamic. So just keep that in mind as you're building these out, that if you do want these views to react to data coming from other places, that you have the flexibility to do that. So both what you see is what you get if everything's static, but also the ability to have these adapt and adjust based on data that exists elsewhere. We're going to continue down to our toggle. And the only thing we're going to do down here is update the name to survey. So that way when someone posts a result, we can reference survey to get the details out of it. Boolean if it's yes or no, or true or false. Then we're going to do one last thing. That's going to be adding a button. Now there's 2 ways to do a button. I could find it and say, hey, there's a button. Or you can search. So just like in contact flows itself, you're able to search for your different type of content. So if you don't know where something is, you don't have to hunt and peck for it, you can search for it. In this case, I'm going to drag a button out. I'm going to name it close contact by double clicking, getting my caret in there so I can change it. And then the last thing we're going to do is update action here to end. This action is going to show up or display inside of the flow block. So the way that we actually integrate these views inside of contact flows is via a show view block. Any action that exists here is going to be an output from that block. So in this case, I have an end button. I could have an update button. I could have a go back button, and those can go to different places inside my overall flow. So something to think about here. Do you have options that we haven't talked about? Like, is this required? What's the default? There's a lot of flexibility you have inside of this. We're going to stop with this. We're going to save, and we're going to publish. Just like flows, you can save as many times as you need to, but it's only once it's published that it will be accessible or usable elsewhere. If you do save, you can do that again as you're going through the process, but once it's published, it'll then show up. If you go back to your main views, it'll then show up here as published. So you have saved and you have published, and the ability to interact with these and do different things. I can go to this one. I could delete it if I wanted to. Don't delete the one that you just created. I'm going to delete something different here. But again, you have full access here to go in and edit them, to delete them, to do something else if you decide to, if you need to clean this up or move things to other places. Now that we have our first view, which is a modified disposition view, we're going to go to the very front of our workflow that we're working with here and create the view that we're going to see as an agent for the very first time. To do so, we're going to select Create View, like I just did, and we're going to name it. We're going to name this one Workshop Main View. Right, I can't see chat or Q&A right now. Is everyone doing all right, keeping along, or is there anything that I need to stop and address?
Chat's looking good, but I think we want to know what your favorite ice cream flavor is.
Ooh, stay tuned. We are going to find out here in just a bit how I'm feeling today. So we have a blank canvas, and we're actually going to go through the process of building this out. Some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive because I want you to see how different elements can be brought into this experience so that you can kind of have an idea of how to build something that would make sense for you. Again, a lot of these things can be copy and pasted, so it might look like a lot of configuration options, but really it should go relatively quickly as we go through. To start, we're going to pull out an attribute bar. An attribute bar is a really nice way to display data consistently across your different views. You can have an attribute bar be static or consistent, so that way no matter what view you have, you're displaying maybe the customer name, the queue type, other things that you might care about. You can have dynamic values, static values. You can have text be copyable. And you can actually have it be selectable. So you can have links in here that take you to external applications, takes you to cases in Amazon Connect, and even opens up third-party applications. And we'll take a look at that at the very, very end here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this. Our attribute bar is looking a little bit empty, so I'm going to add 3 times. So I have a nice full 4 items. I'm going to start to go through the process of configuring these. We're going to do ice cream flavor. We're going to do type of ice cream. I'm going to make this value dynamic. I'm going to do type of ice cream. Again, making this value dynamic. We're going to do queue name. This one's a little bit of a lie. We're actually doing channel in our check here, so you could put channel. But if you wanted queue, you could definitely pull queue in. We're going to make that dynamic. And then our last value here is going to be a static value, just to show that there's something here that doesn't always have to be brought in. And it's going to be a nice, polite, hi, this is a static value. Now that we've configured some of our attributes themselves inside of our attribute bar, I do want to call out one thing, and that's that we have an ID right here. This ID is kind of large. There's a lot of what you would call a UID after this, and this will come up later because every single value that I selected here and said that this was dynamic is going to have a home inside of our show view block, which means that it will be referencing this ID. So just keep that in mind. When we get to the show view block, it'll make more sense. This can be customized. You can call this something else if you wanted to. I'm not. But just keep that in mind. There's a one-to-one relationship between the ID here, the values that are dynamic, and then what you're requested to put into your show view block. So it might make sense to give this a friendly name if you need to. We're going to go into styles, and we're going to start to look at some of the theming that we can do directly inside of this UI. We're going to get a little creative here. We're going to make it from our standard light mode. I'm a dark mode fan here, so we're going to try and make this a little bit darker. And we're going to start from the top by making our attribute bar background. Now, all of the things that I have in the workshop are going to be your hex codes, so you can paste those in directly. If instead you wanted to mess with the slider here, if you wanted to do RGB because you like that instead of hex, or if you wanted just to click one of these, certainly able to. You don't need to pick the colors that I am deciding here. Be creative, but just make sure it's legible. As it is right now, there's not a lot of great contrast. We'll fix that as we continue to go through some of the different options that we have here. We're going to mess with our divider width. You see that bumped our divider padding here just a little bit. We're going to change our divider color. We're going to change the bar label color. In this case, it's white, so I'm just going to click on white, which is all the Fs. And then attribute bar value color. We're going to paste in, and that's going to be a nice Amazon Connect blue. You should look something like this. If you didn't remove your values, you might have values in there. That's fine. But at the very least, your static value should be blue with your label text white and then a darker contrast background. Again, if you want yours to be hot pink or tangerine or something different, feel free. Just make sure that you can actually read it and see what's going on. Now that we've done our attribute bar, we're going to start building out the rest of this view. And to do so, we're going to use a combination of section and container components. Section components are really useful for spacing, padding, styling, and then containers are really useful for bringing together different components. We're going to start by dropping a section right here below our attribute bar like I did. And we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to remove our heading text. And then we're going to go to styles. And we're going to go to what I call 3-9 layout. So you'll see you have the ability to do full, 50-50, quadrants, bigger in the middle, smaller on the sides. We're going to do this one, which is going to default to 3-9. So we're going to have a left skinny section and then a larger section on the right for this particular layout. We're going to change our border color to white or all of the Fs if you want to use the hex code. Modify our border width to be 0 pixels. And now we're going to start building out the left side. So you can embed these components within each other. So here I've put a container into the left part, this 3 section of my section. Within the container, I'm going to go back to properties and hide the border. Again, we're trying to make this flow together a little bit better. And then under styles, I'm going to change it to full. So I've now set my container on the left side of my overall pane here. And we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the right side. We're going to drag the container over here to the right. We're going to hide the border, styles, full. One thing that might happen, I don't know if it's browser specific, haven't quite figured it out, is sometimes when you immediately drag the item into your configurations, it might not stick. I click out and click back in, and then you're able to actually make your settings. So if you ran into something where you're like, I know I clicked full or I did dynamic, just try and deselect it after immediately dragging it. And then that should allow you to actually configure the item there. Everyone should have something that looks about like this now, where you have a section with a left container and a right container now. And this is going to allow us to continue building out parts of the workspace that we care about. And we're going to start with the left side. So on the left side, we're going to drag an attribute section. Now, it happens to be under container. Again, you could use search if you needed to find it and you didn't have this open already. We're going to drag it inside of this left area. Now here's another example of what I just talked about. If I click full right now, it's not actually changing it. So if you just deselect and reselect and mark it to full, you'll see that it's now respecting some of the changes that you decided to do. And then if we go back to properties, we're going to see that we have items listed here, just like we did for the attribute bar in other areas. You should see a lot of similarities in how these components operate. We're going to manipulate our labels and our values again. In this case, we're putting static values. This is going to be the rewards tier. Because we're an ice cream shop with different tiers, we're going to call this the silver scoop. You can think of anything that goes with platinum. I don't know, platinum pistachio or something. Feel free to do that. Have some fun with this one. These values don't matter. We're just putting static values in here. The next item is going to be pint of the month member. It's up to you on if this random customer is a member or is not. In my case, they are. And then we're going to go ahead and remove items 3 and items 4. That's just by selecting the remove button twice. So you're only left with items 1 and 2. What I'm doing here is I'm going to start building from the bottom up. So now that I have my attribute section, I'm going to add a couple of buttons. We're going to start with one button first. And if we select it, we'll see that we have properties and styles options just like we did in other places. I'm going to make the variant primary, and you'll see that fills it in. It's more of a styling thing than anything, so it's really depending on what your preferences are. I'm going to set the icon here, and we're going to call it unlocked. Oops, icon name, unlocked. You'll see there's a lot of different icons here. If Freddie has some spare fingers, he can hopefully link us to our icon library or documentation. We'll see it a little bit later when we use media and bring icons in. But instead of having to click on every single one of these and kind of figure out what it is, we do have a lot of these different types of icons or images notated so that way you can pull from them and know what they look like. In this case, we are doing a reset password action. And so we're going to change our action type, and we're going to select the button and update the text to reset password. We're going to do the exact same thing by adding 2 more buttons. Now, if maybe you're running a little bit behind, if you need to catch up, we're not doing anything with these buttons. This is purely stylistic here. This workshop isn't going to make these buttons do anything. So if you want to just skip buttons 2 and buttons 3, that's perfectly fine, but I will go through the process of just kind of wrapping this up so that way what I have on my screen matches what we have on our screenshots. I'm going to make this a primary button. I'm going to make this say contact. I'm going to make my action be SMS. I'm going to make the button text say send SMS. So because each of these actions have their own outputs from the show view block, if you wanted to do things like reset the password, send an SMS, or update customer details, you'd be able to do all of those things as actions coming out of this view. You could go into workflows, you could go into another application. And so these could be meaningful buttons. They could actually allow you to bring up a form, type up a text message and send it out, do other types of things directly from this kind of landing page that we're setting up. Now, just to be clear, in this workshop, they're defunct, they don't go anywhere, but they could. And we're going to have real outputs that would allow you to set those up if you wanted to. The last thing I'm doing is primary button again. I'm going to make my icon name settings. I'm going to make my action be update customer details. I'm going to make my button text be profile. We're going to continue to build up, and I'm going to bring up another attribute section. If I drag that to the top, Just like before, we're going to change the layout to full. And in this case, we're going to use all 4 of our items if we go back to properties. Item 1 will be customer name. We're actually going to pull this in from our contact flow, so it's going to be dynamic. Item 2 is going to be customer email or email address, which is also going to be dynamic. Item 3 is a static value here. This is going to be a sample account, or whatever else you want to call it. And then item 4 is going to be membership. Member since when? Let's say 2011. They've been a long time member here, which is why they've gotten the coveted silver scoop reward here. We're almost done building out this left pane. And so we're going to move a text box. And within the text box, we're going to do some styling to it. We're going to make the font weight be bold. And we're going to make the text be customer details by double clicking and pasting. And the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to go to media. And as I mentioned, there's icons. We have this entire icon library. If you had all the spare time in the day, you could certainly go through and click all of these. But we do have a handy link that Freddie posted in there that has all the components. In this case, we're going to use the one that's called person. And we now have a little person icon that's there. And that's it. What you have and what I have should match the screenshot that we have in the workshop right now. I'm just going to save. So that way, if something horrendous were to happen to my browser, I wouldn't have to do all that over again. Something to keep in mind as we talk about building these types of experiences out. There's not currently the ability to export these types of guides or views from the UI, but you can do it via the APIs. So if you wanted to shortcut all of this and take what I already had, you could run the describe view API or the create view API to go ahead and get these maybe across environments, from a workshop like this all the way through. So just something to keep in mind as well when it comes to building these types of components, how that's currently supported. What we're going to do now is we're going to build the right side. If we remember, we had our section, we had a left side, and then we have the right side, which has a container in it. We're going to start by loading it up with a couple of different component types. The first thing that we're going to drag in is a card element. We'll see this card element comes preloaded with 4 different cards that each have their own different kind of styling in it. We're going to customize those and delete a few. But before we do that, let's just get all of the overall framework in. So we're going to drag a text box above the cards. We're going to drag another section below cards. So you'll see here it wanted to live above cards, but now it's below. And then inside of this section, we're going to use a list component and bring that inside. So you should look something like this, but we're going to clean this up. We're going to cut this down a little bit and make it a little more relevant to the use case and story that we're trying to tell. We're going to start with the list. So we're going to start bottom up again. And we're going to name the heading, in this case, the text right here, other actions. These are going to be other types of actions that an agent could do if some of the suggested cards aren't relevant or aren't the right thing for them. So a common thing that might happen here, if we go into items and items 1, could be account services. And we'll put some boilerplate text here as far as the description. And we will update the icon. I'll do directory. Within items 2, we're going to do store locator and finding a location near the customer. You should already probably have icon cafe pre-selected. Keep it. If for some reason yours showed something different, you can change it. And we're going to remove item 3. And we can see that this view is starting to come together a little bit with what I had shared earlier. I'm going to select our section. We're going to remove the heading text. Then we're going to navigate to styles. And we're going to change some border colors and border width similar to what we did earlier. So here I'll use the quick select to make it all Fs. Here I will put pixel border width. And what you have should start to look like what I have and what's also in the screenshot in the workshop here. We have two more things we need to update. We need to update our cards, and then we need to update kind of our header text here. So we're going to start by selecting cards. We're going to go into properties, and we'll see that we have 4 cards listed. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to start with 1, and I'm going to expand summary. And in my heading, this is going to link to a recent purchase. In status, we're going to have a hard-coded or a static value, but think about how this could be dynamic. In this case, we're looking at recent purchases and we're seeing that our person who really likes to frequent our ice cream shop has 22 recent transactions. Think about how that could be maybe claim status or reservation status or time since last something. So all of these fields can be dynamic and can be brought in or populated based on data that exists from your other types of systems. However, for the purposes of this, we're going to just put some static data so it can start to build out. Underneath detail, we're going to make our heading link to recent purchase. The nice thing about this is just like with the AWS managed views, we're able to see these things update in real time. So it's not like you have to save or publish or preview. We're able to see all of these changes happening while you're going through the process. I continue to copy and paste some things over. In this case, description. You're going to see that data come through. Actions. So these are the buttons at the bottom. So within a card, we're giving someone the ability to see at a high level, is this the thing that I need to click? You click it. Let's give them some information as a sneak peek. Maybe bring information in, tell them about this flow or process. And then these actions allow them to go to other places and do other things. These could be other workflows. These could be form views. This could be where you update the password or file the claim or check the status, do all of those things. So these actions allow the agent to interact and do the next thing. You can either update those independently, but we're actually going to go ahead and select paste in options. And the way that these copy should paste in, like lines separated, where we have one item and then on a second line, a second item, which then updates these two fields. I think I also missed one step, which is going back to icon and making this be link instead of car. And so now I should be back on track with what we're doing here within card 1. So I will minimize it. Actually, I won't because I need to do sections. So the very last thing here is sections. This is the description. Oops. This is the description. These are the actions. And then this is the section if you want to show anything else down here. So we actually have some text we can copy and paste in. In this case, the most recent transaction was a triple scoop of Rocky Road for $12.34. And so we'll make sure that we paste that in, and then now we'll move on to card number 2. Within card number 2, we're going to go through the exact same process. We'll actually just click on that so we can see it. We're going to go through, this is where we actually update our favorites. This is the one that we're going to tie into our end-to-end workflow. And so I'm going to go to controls. Again, if you want a different icon, you are free to make this themed the way that you want it to. 14 days since they last changed. And then the description here is going to be stay up to date. The summary is what shows up in the card itself up top. So now we're going to start configuring the details sections, which is what happens when this card is expanded. Inside of details, we're going to go ahead and change the heading to update favorites, the description to getting notified when the favorite flavor is on deck. And then we're going to do the same thing where we paste in options. And here we're going to actually have a couple of buttons, 3 buttons, instead of the 2 buttons that we saw previously. And then in our section view, we're going to paste in 4 columns in this case, so you can see what that formatting looks like. So you can see that this particular person liked Blue Moon, and then they've been ordering a lot of chocolate recently here, or their favorite had been listed at chocolate more recently. Going to remove cards 3 and 4. Hopefully we start to get an idea of how these cards and lists and other types of views interact with each other. And then the last thing we're going to do here is update our text box. Remember, we drag a text box to the top of the screen. We're going to go ahead and select the variant to be a header, in this case H3. I'm going to make the font size be just a little bit bigger, maybe make it heading M. You can make it bold if you wanted to. And then we're going to go ahead and put in some text. In this case, the customer may be contacting too. So now the agent gets presented with this when a contact starts. Maybe contacting to either link a recent purchase because they missed a scan, or they can add or modify an order, or we're enabling them to update their favorites. Update favorite, see previous, or go from there. And so these all will have actions that you can then tie into other views or other parts of your workflow to complete this process inside of the agent workspace. I'm going to go ahead and save and publish. And now we're going to go through the view where we actually create what we're going to call our form. So we'll go back to flows and views. We'll go to create view, and then we'll name this one workshop form view. And we're going to continue to use a lot of the same practices that we did earlier. And so I'm going to move through this to make sure that we get through the end. Again, all of these instructions are going to be located inside of the workshop. We're going to start by bringing out a section element, making the style full. And then we're going to start by bringing a form. This is the first time we start interacting with the form element types. You'll see that we have both a form, toggle, different types of pickers. We're going to use form. We're going to use radio group, put right above the form. And we're going to use like open text form input here. And we're going to have that above the radio group. And then at the top, we're going to have a text box. And then above the text box, I'm going to pull a header out of general. And all of these elements are going to be inside of this form. What we're going to do is we're going to select our submit button here. And we're going to change the label to next, so that way the agent can see what it does. We're going to configure some of our radio group or radio button settings here. This is going to be where we're going to select the type of ice cream. So a type of ice cream could be a number of different things. We're going to give it the name of type. That's going to be the variable that we're going to reference later. We're going to select both label and value for all of these. So the types, these can be whatever you want them to be. I have a couple pre-selected here inside the workshop. We have some gelato, we have some soft serve, we have some frozen yogurt or froyo. We have some frozen custard, which we'll add in 4. And then we will have other. Can't list them all, so we'll go ahead and put other and see what we're missing. Maybe we need to add some different form factors. Maybe I'm missing a sundae here, or I'm missing something else that would be appetizing to someone. In the form input, this is where we're going to take our open text flavor type. So our label is going to be favorite flavor. We're going to remove the default value. I'm going to make the name, this is what is the value that we're referencing coming out of it. We're going to name that flavor. And then for the helper text, you can enter any flavor. We're not doing any form validation right now, but say you had a form where you did need to do validation. You could not only make this required, but tie the output here on the text that's inputted through a validation process. So you can make sure that you're only inputting or selecting certain things based on your workflow. We're going to move up in this view and configure our text box. We're going to go ahead and make it a heading large, make it just a little bit bigger. And then what is your favorite flavor? And then in our header, we're going to change the header text to ice cream preferences. And then we're going to make the description complete the following questions to update the profile. And we're almost done. We're going to do some theming or padding here. We're going to clear the heading text. And then within styles, we're going to make our border color all white. We're going to make our border width a nice hefty 50 pixels. And we'll see that what that does is that actually brings some padding between the left side of the screen and the form, so there's a little bit of space, and we'll see what that looks like inside the agent workspace. Gonna save and publish. And now we're gonna build the very last view before we tie these all together. This last view here is going to be a review and submit view, which is a way that you can go ahead and take the details that have been imported or the details that you have just gathered and display that for the agent. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to create a new view, call it the workshop review view. And we're going to apply a template again and modify this one a little bit more than what we did for the disposition. So we're going to select review and submit in templates. We're going to delete the attribute bar because we don't need it here. We're going to delete or remove the payment section. And so now we're left with a more stripped down area that we're going to modify. We'll update the header description here with the text that's in the workshop. Review the following for accuracy. And we'll start to customize and add some elements in. In this case, we're going to add an expandable section found underneath container below the header. So I'll drag that down. And we'll name that terms and conditions. Then I'll add a text box inside of it. And then inside this text box, we'll add the text that we have in the workshop, or really any text that you would want to. And then to make sure that we actually get our terms accepted, we're going to take a toggle out of our form, place that inside of our expandable section. We'll name that terms accepted. And then we'll update this section view here to list the values that we had. So we'll name the heading updated favorites. And then if we select inside this section, we'll see that it's containing attribute section, which we've already played with a couple of times so far. Inside of this, we'll have 5 items. We can remove the 5th item. And then start saying things like label, new favorite flavor. This is dynamic. What was the old favorite flavor? So we want to know where we're coming from. And we're going to pull that in from an attribute. Favorite type. What is the new form factor or way that they want to consume this ice cream? This is dynamic. And then in item 4, we're going to say see more. And we're going to make this static right now. But this is where you could do things like navigate to a third-party app. Right now, you can have an external, so that's an external link to somewhere else, or a case option available in here. In the near future, this will also have the ability to select inside this view third-party applications like what Freddie showed you earlier in this session. So that way you can directly integrate them from the no-code UI. Currently, you can still link these types, but you have to do it via the JSON. So you can do it today if you want to be able to directly link or provide links to third-party applications from guides. But in the near future, we'll be adding that capability to the UI that we're looking at right now. Right now, we're going to leave that blank and just make this a static value and pretend that it's going to do something. And then the last thing we'll do is we will update the submit button. We'll take the action and we'll make it submit. And with that, we've configured all of the views necessary for this workflow. I'm going to publish this. If you get this that's published successfully, I know I've just been closing out on these. It's that the sample data that's being set up here, especially in circumstances like this, where I'm saying, hey, like I'm using dynamic values here. It doesn't have the value to bring in, but as long as it's saying that it did publish, you can be safe to ignore that and continue to move on. What we're going to do from here is we're going to go into our normal flows. So we've been spending all of our time in views. We're going to go into our normal flows. And in the workshop, you can download a contact flow and then actually import it here. So I am going to import my flow. It should be called SBS for step-by-step guides, agent experience default. And when it pulls up, it should look something like this. And there's going to be the four or five views that we created here, and then some attributes. So we're going to start with the attribute selected here. And this is where we're setting values that we want to be displayed inside of the view. So you can change your name here. In this case, I'm going to put my name, Alex. These values could come in from customer profiles. They could come in from your CRM. They could come in from anywhere. But what we're trying to show here is that these are values that are dynamic. In this case, we're setting them inside of our contact flow so that we don't have to tie together a full end-to-end process, but they could come from Lex, they could come from DynamoDB, any of your backend systems, or your Connect systems here are eligible to be set as a contact attribute and then be used inside views. We'll see in this case, the initial flavor is chocolate. If you want to change it to something different, you can. Our initial type is gelato. And I'm going to change my email here to be alex@example.com. And I'll save it. We'll need to do a couple of just validation steps here. So we're going to start by opening this initial view. This is our main view. And you may need to go through the process here of actually selecting workshop main view that you created. This will associate it, and you'll see that attribute bar. And I told you there was that UID that was there. If you named it something different, you should see the different name here. Since I didn't rename mine, nothing changed. We're going to set JSON and then paste in the values that we had from the workshop. In this case, we're setting the attributes since we had a couple of different dynamic values. And we're saying for the first value, read from flow attributes, initial flavor. For the second value, read from flow attributes, initial type. And then for the third value, read from channel. And this is our attributes bar at the top. And that's where our data is going to populate in from. For our attributes section, which is what's on the left part of our screen, this is where our customer details, our customer name, and our customer email are coming from. So this is how we're actually passing in our dynamic values. And we're seeing this because it said set dynamically. I'm going to open up my form view. I'm going to make sure that I am set to workshop form view. There's no configuration that needs to happen in here, so I will save it. I'll go to my review view. I'll set it to the one that actually exists in my environment here. And I should already have these attribute sections here, but if yours doesn't load or looks different, you can certainly paste what we have in the workshop in and hit save. We'll have the disposition view. We will set it to be workshop disposition. And we have one value here. In this case, we're doing the new flavor and the new type. So we're making sure that that is going to pull through. And then the last one here is the confirmation view. The confirmation view should just have some static text. Congratulations, your favorite. And we'll see here, we're actually using these attributes in line. So it's going to put new flavor and new type, and it's going to display that directly in the confirmation area. It's going to provide a nice green checkbox graphic. And then it's going to have a subheading here. So we don't need to make any changes. But if you don't have these values, you can certainly copy and paste them in from the workshop. I'm going to save. And then that should be it. We can save. We can publish. And then the last thing we need to do is set up what we call a handler flow. So this view gets referenced or called by the handler flow because there's actually two contacts that are happening. There's your inbound contact that's coming from your customer, whether that's the voice interaction, the chat interaction, or a task interaction that's coming inbound. That's handled by a different part of flows. It's handled by your handler flow. And then when a contact is connected to the agent, this view that we just had is what's loaded up and displayed into the agent workspace. So we're going to create our handler flow. We're just going to import it. I believe that the instructions in the workshop tell us to do something, but I think that the version I uploaded here actually has everything loaded. So yours should be a little bit different than the workshop instructions because it actually has this block here. In the workshop instructions, we instruct you to actually pull out the set event view or sent event flow block out here into the canvas. But we already did that. We already set it. So you'll want to make sure that you set yours to the step-by-step guides or whatever else you called it, agent experience default. And then all it's doing from here is it's turning on logging. It's setting the queue to go to the basic queue. If you have your user pointed somewhere else, change that. Either point it to your user or point it to a different queue. I just play a very basic prompt that says transferring. We transfer it. And then we have our catch-all error handling that I have to say, in a production environment, please error handle better than this. We'll then publish this flow and we'll be ready to test. We can test, in this case, by going to our test chat utility. We gave you permissions to do this at the very top of the session. And so you'll select your straight to queue contact flow. If you want to set your name, you certainly can. I'm going to set this and I'm going to immediately go into my agent workspace because it's going to start to ring me here. I'm going to accept the chat. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. We're testing with chat, but we could have done this with voice. I just need to stress that. Chat's just easier to talk through. I don't put myself on mute. You don't have to hear the feedback, all that good stuff. But because we received this contact, transferring was played as that message, and then this view was rendered. This is the view that we just created. You'll see chocolate as my initial flavor. Your flavor, if you listed it as differently, should show up. You'll see gelato as my default. You'll see my name and my email address that I listed there. So all the dynamic values that we selected are dynamic. I can select all of these different cards. I can view them. I can see my tables. All of that good stuff is all right here. Now, the only thing that we really have wired up to work is that all these buttons right now just take us to the next thing. So we're going to go to Update Favorite. And it's from here, which is what everyone's been anxiously waiting for, which is what is my favorite flavor? And right now I'm feeling it's cookie dough. And cookie dough frozen custard sounds really good right about now. So I will input those values and we'll see that my new favorite flavor is now cookie dough. My old favorite flavor was chocolate. It's pulling that from the attributes. And my favorite type is frozen custard. I have the ability to view the terms and conditions, select it, and I can go ahead and submit this. Today, it's not going anywhere, but remember, all of these actions use flows. So you can push this data into any backend system that you need to update it. We've also brought these attributes into our attribute bar. So we can let the agent know the type of ice cream is frozen custard, it's cookie dough. How do they feel about it? The agent loves that suggestion. And we're going to go ahead and set them up for a outbound survey. And we're going to end. And this is our confirmation view. This is that dynamic attribute I just showed you, as is this, all brought in because we're setting those attributes within the environment. But there's one extra thing that I did in my flow. I told you that we have the ability to link to 3P apps directly out of guides, just not out of the UI today. And so in this particular view, I actually snuck that in right here inside event requests. This is the same app that you all built earlier. So I was able to launch directly into that app. I didn't need to select it from the pane here. And we'll see that my cookie dough attribute that we set earlier is there. Now, there's one extra question that I saw earlier, and then I'm going to stop talking and take questions if there's any. What happens with these apps? Are they containerized? And so I already have one chat going on right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start a second chat. And so what should happen is my user here should receive a second chat coming through from an embedded chat widget that I have somewhere else. And we'll see it took them to the exact same starting point. Again, the static values are static. I mean, well, technically they're dynamic, but they're static in the flow. But as I select my different contacts, these are containerized. So if I had customer profiles up, or cases up, or a third-party app up, or if I go back to my view here, these are containerized. So we're only seeing the independent pieces for each contact. That allows you to, let me pull up my schedule app. I'm doing something over here, and then suddenly I need to go back to this other customer. It's going to continuously update and only show the content for those. So here I'm flipping between two different third-party apps. Here, if I hit back to home, I'm back into guides. And as I change who I'm talking to, again, voice, chat, task, whatever Contact Connect supports, we're going to have that containerized view and only display the agent the information for that contact. So I've shared the lifecycle process earlier, but just want to call that out. Also, my timeout here, I think, was like 900 seconds or something. So your timeouts will close your views and kind of facilitate some of that process. So just keep that in mind. But did want to show that aspect there about how concurrency worked, about how the ability to interact with these apps worked, and how they really are contact dependent. If I go back to the state where I have no contacts anymore, just going to close everything. I can still access my apps. I can still access all the apps that I have loaded in here. My visual voicemail app that allows me to listen and see my voicemails. The app that we built together today. But if I get a new contact, it's going to be reinitialized if I open that app based on the context brought in. Gonna stop there. I hope Freddie's been keeping up with all the questions and comments, but if there's any highlights or key points that we want to call out, we do have a couple of minutes here to address those. And with that, I officially think that we're done. If there's anything that we didn't get to, speak now or forever hold your questions. Just kidding. Reach out to your account teams, your solutions architects, anyone else. If there's more questions on this, we'd love to know your use cases. Like I mentioned at the top, if there's things that you'd like to see, things that are missing, things that are almost there but not quite, or things that you really love to see that you didn't see back in August or previously. Would love to hear all the feedback, both in the survey as well as through your account teams, so that we can go ahead and make sure that we're continuing to iterate and build in the direction that our customers need, both within the no-code UI builder, making it easier to build those agent experiences, and within third-party applications, making it easier to migrate, onboard, and get access to the tools and services that your agents need without having to manage a bunch of disparate applications, views, and windows to make it easier to serve your customers. I'm going to wrap this session up for the day. Really do appreciate everyone hopping on. Thank you, Freddie, for leading us through the first half, and everyone for sticking around. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and hope to see you all at the session next time.